an American heiress, brooding bookseller,
decaying Venetian palace hiding a secret that will force them to choose between money and a love written in the stars.
The first time Liam saw Sofia, she was arguing with the gondolier in fluent Italian, her gestures sharp with frustration, while her designer suitcase sat precariously on the wet stones of the canal bank. He leaned against the doorframe of his family bookshop, library per duty lost books, a faint smile playing on his lips. She was exactly as he'd imagined from her emails, all sharp edges and American efficiency here to claim her inheritance.
Sofia Baran had inherited a forgotten palazzo from a great aunt she barely remembered.
Her life in New York was one of spreadsheets, client meetings, and logical outcomes. This crumbling, water-stained relic in Venice, filled with the scent of damp and decay, was an illogical problem to be solved, and the main obstacle to solving it was the man now smirking at her from a dusty bookshop doorway. Signorina Baron, he called out, his English lightly accented. I see you've met Luigi. He tends to overcharge when he smells new blood. Subscribe to the channel and like it. Sophia straightened up, brushing a strand of dark hair from her face.
And you must be Mr.
Mufti, the caretaker. She infused the word with all the skepticism she felt. Her aunt's will had been specific. Liam Morty, whose family had run the bookshop on the ground floor of the palazzo for generations, had a lifetime tenancy, a say in any restoration. He was, in her view, a squatter with a legal document. Their first meeting in the cavernous, echoing main hall of the palazzo was a battle of wills. These frescoes are priceless, Liam argued, his hand hovering near a flaking depiction of a saint. You cannot just paint over them. This entire wall is structurally unsound, Sophia countered, tapping her tablet, which displayed an engineer's reports. It's either restore it properly or watch it collapse into the canal. My report suggests the latter is more likely without significant investment. Your reports don't understand the soul of this place, he shot back, his voice tight. For weeks, they were locked in a Cold War fought through terse emails and awkward encounters in the shadowy corridors. She was the ruthless capitalist, he the stubborn traditionalist. He saw her as a vulture picking at the bones of his city's history. She saw him as a romantic fool clinging to a past that was actively mouldering around him. The stalemate broke on a night when a fierce choir altar flooded the city. Sophia, working late in the palazzo, found herself trapped as the water surged into the ground floor. The electricity flickered and died. As she fumbled in the dark, her phone dead, a beam of light cut through the gloom. Liam stood there, clad in waders, his expression grim. You're going to drown in here with your reports, he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Come on. Subscribe to the channel and like it. He led her not out of the palazzo, but up to the piano nobile, where the water hadn't yet reached. In the light of a dozen candles, the grand salon looked different, not decaying, but sleeping. He built a fire in the massive fireplace, its heat pushing back the damp chill. Why did you stay? She asked, her voice small, her professional armor cracked. Because someone has to, he replied, handing her a glass of rich red wine, and because this place has secrets you haven't even begun to imagine. He showed her then, not with reports but with stories. He pointed to a water stain on the ceiling and told her of the flood of 1936. He traced the carved crest over the fireplace and explained it belonged to a doge who had secretly funded artists. That night, the palazzo stopped being an asset and started being a place that had lived. He brought her a blanket when she shivered, and she, in turn, shared the chocolate bar from her pocket. She laughed, a genuine, uncalculated sound, when he imitated a particularly pompous art historian he'd once chased from the shop. He watched the candlelight soften the sharp lines of her face and realized with a jolt that he wanted to see her like this always. The truce became a partnership.
Sofia's drive and access to funds, combined with Liam's historical knowledge and connections to master craftsmen, began to breathe real life back into the old walls. They discovered hidden passages behind bookshelves and a forgotten balcony overlooking a secluded courtyard. Their workdays ended with shared glasses of wine and conversations that stretched long into the Venetian nights.
The threat came from a sleek modern yacht that moored one morning outside. A Swiss development consortium, having heard of the American heiress and the massive palazzo, made an offer.
It was an obscene amount of money.
They wanted to turn it into a members-only hotel, a jewel box for the ultra-rich.
Sofia's corporate instincts hummed. It was the most logical, profitable outcome.
Liam looked at her, his eyes full of a bitter betrayal.
So this is what it was always about for you. The bottom line.
The accusation stung more than she expected.
It's a business decision, Liam.
Smart one. Venice doesn't need more hotels for people who don't see it, he said quietly, turning away.
It needs people who see its soul.
That night, Sofia sat
Alone in the grand salon,
the developer's contract glowing on her tablet. She looked around at the shadows dancing on the restored frescoes at the space that had become more a home to her in months than her sterile New York apartment had ever been. She thought of Liam's stories. She thought of his hands, careful on a 300-year-old book binding. She found him in the bookshop restocking shelves with a furious energy. "I'm not selling," she said. He paused, not turning around. "Why?"
because you were right. Some things have a soul, and they're worth more than money.
Together they devised a new plan. The palazzo would become a cultural foundation, a library for rare Venetian texts on the lower floors, with Liam as its curator, and a carefully restored, historically accurate guest suite on the upper floor to fund it. They presented it as a united front to the city council, Sofia's brilliant financial projections seamlessly supported by Liam's passionate historical defense. They won.
Subscribe to the channel and like it. Part 2: The Secret of the Lion's Mouth.
Their celebration was a private picnic on their newly discovered courtyard balcony, the sounds of the city a distant murmur. The moon painted the stonework in silver, and the air was warm with the scent of jasmine.
You know, Sofia said, sipping her Prosecco, when I first saw you, I thought you were the most infuriatingly arrogant man I had ever met.
Liam laughed, a low, warm sound.
And I was certain you were a heartless corporate machine here to gut my home and sell its parts. He grew serious, his glass held loosely in his fingers.
It was a fool.
You didn't gut it, Sofia. You gave it a heart.
You gave me a reason.
He stood and offered her his hand. She took it, and he led her not down into the streets, but deeper into the heart of the palazzo, to a door she had always assumed was a closet. He produced an ancient, ornate key.
"This," he said, "is the one secret I was saving."
The door opened onto a small, circular room at the very top of a tower, a room she never knew existed. It had a domed ceiling painted with constellations and a single, large window overlooking the glittering expanse of the Venetian lagoon. It was filled with cushions and soft rugs, a world away from the formal grandeur below.
"This was my secret place as a boy," he whispered, his voice husky. "No one else has ever been here." He turned her to face him, his hands cupping her face. The moonlight caught the planes of his face, and his eyes were dark pools of undisguised longing. He didn't kiss her immediately. He simply looked at her as if memorizing her features in this new intimate light. When his lips finally met hers, it was not with the haste of passion, but with the slow, deliberate reverence of a man unlocking a final cherished secret. It was a kiss that tasted of wine, of promise, and of a future she had never dared to plan for.
His hands moved from her face, tracing the line of her neck, her shoulders, down her spine, pulling her flush against him.
The efficient, controlled Sophia Baron felt the last of her defenses crumble into dust.
Her own hand slid beneath his linen shirt, feeling the warm, solid muscle of his back, learning the landscape of the man who had fought for a city's soul and in the process had won hers.
Their clothes fell away the silent pool of fabric on the ancient floor.
He laid her down on the soft cushions, and his mouth began a slow, devastating exploration of her body.
He kissed the hollow of her throat,
The curve of her breast, the sensitive skin of her inner thigh. It was an act of devotion, each touch a word in a new physical language they were creating together. She gasped his name, her fingers tangling in his dark hair, her body arching against his. A world outside the lapping canals, the distant music, the weight of history faded into insignificance.
There was no rush. There was only the slow, building rhythm of their joining, the shared breaths, the whispered affirmations lost against skin. It was an exquisite, drawn-out unveiling, a conversation of touch that was more honest than any they had ever had with words.
When the climax came, it was not a frantic peak, but a deep rolling wave that washed over them both, leaving them trembling and irrevocably changed.
Afterward, they lay tangled together in the moonlight, her head on his chest, listening to the steady, strong beat of his heart. The silence between them was comfortable, profound.
"What happens now?" she murmured, her lips against his skin. He tightened his arm around her.
"Now," he said, his voice a soft rumble in his chest, "we build the foundation. We fill this library with stories.
We live this life together."
And they did. The Palazzo Morti Foundation became a renowned center for Venetian studies. A year later,
On that same balcony, under a blanket of stars, Liam Morty, the keeper of secrets, got down on one knee and asked Sophia Baron, the woman who had learned to listen to a city soul, to be his wife. Her yes was lost in their kiss, but it echoed through the halls of the palazzo, a new promise woven into its ancient stones.
her greatest treasure she had inherited was not a building, but the love she found hidden within its walls.